Improving ChatGPT prompts. In this lesson, we're going to get some free ChatGPT prompts on the web and try to make them better. So we're going to do two very different prompts. The first one is this, and the idea is to get a list of mid-journey prompts. And then we're going to jump over to a more simple prompt to create a lesson plan. The first thing I did is to run these prompts both in GPT 3.5 Turbo as well as 4. So these are the answers that we get back for this prompt. And the prompt, if you want to pause and read it, it basically tries to teach exactly what Midjourney is so that ChatGPT has a better context for the actual prompt, which is to provide detailed and creative descriptions for Midjourney. So in the 3.5 Turbo model, we have 5 answers, and some of the metrics I want to look at are like the length as well as how many responses we're getting. So these are actually pretty tall prompts, meaning they're long and they seem pretty detailed. And I've done similar things before for generating prompts for AI models, and these are pretty good. So one thing that I see that it's lacking is I happen to know that a relevant keyword is to do it in a style of somebody else. And this is a very interesting prompt to work on because we've talked a lot in this class about setting a prompt for ChatGPT. Or setting these keywords. But now we're dealing with keywords in another application. So what we can do is to do a little bit of research to figure out what Midjourney actually understands. So doing a little bit of Google search, we're getting some information about what keywords that it'll understand. So we're seeing some things about depth of field. That's giving us a clue that it understands stuff about cameras, and we can include that when we're making this prompt better. This is very basic research. You would want to actually dive into the papers and read what is happening, but I want to make this like realistic. So chances are you're going to be doing a Google search and finding out, the easiest, quickest way to make your prompts better. And so we're seeing these. Okay, so it understands aspect resolution. Really cool. And we're seeing some more examples. Minimal, using things like types of art styles, right? So that's something that we may want to target, art styles and photography. And these are all sort of stylistic things that we can use. And now we're getting into famous artists, and this is something that's super important and something that I definitely want to include in the prompt. So now that we have an idea about what types of keywords to use, we can, number one, just ask ChatGPT what keywords to use for this prompt. So we're going to do that in both 3.5 and 4 and see what happens. I just typed in what prompt keywords can I use to improve this prompt for image generation. So first of all, we want to analyze the prompt that we're using to get this. And basically the keywords here are like prompt keywords. So I'm asking specifically what I want. And then I'm giving a little bit of context about this, but now actually that I look at it, I want to make sure that it knows this is going to be an image generation model. Okay, so 3.5 gives us colors, emotion, textures, lighting, elements, and these are true. You can use these, but again, we've already seen other things, particularly artists that we know that we can use. So using in the style of, whether you're generating writing or images, it's super powerful. So let's see what ChatGPT 4 gets back for this. Whoops, accidentally copied too much. So let's see. Okay, so this is not giving us the answer that we want. So it looks like So I did this in the same context, which is probably the reason why we're having a little bit of trouble. The context here, it did use just that, and it gave us things that actually matter. But when we did it in 4, it actually went back to this particular context and gave us information that isn't relevant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to a new ChatGPT 4 and see if it can do it. And it does not. It is not doing a good job. Bad ChatGPT. I spoke too soon. So actually it's giving us, it did something else first. Like it tried to answer these 5 bullet points. So this is like the first thing I would actually change about the prompt. Number 1, like this is not providing any additional context. And number 2, it just doesn't need to be in this order. And that's the next thing I wanted to do, is to just ask ChatGPT to improve the prompt. But we're still on the keywords. So here we have actually a few useful things. Number 1 is like the artistic techniques. Source images might not be useful here, maybe in GPT-4 once the image capabilities have been upgraded. But for now, we do find artistic techniques here. Unique and interesting images keyword could be useful. All right, so now we're going to do the cheating method. I love this. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask ChatGPT to make this prompt better. And I really don't recommend that you just throw a prompt in here, tell it to make it better, and then think, oh, it's better. Because what I've found is that sometimes when you're doing this, ChatGPT will lose context. Even if you tell it that the prompt has to have the exact same meaning, because it's a language model, meanings change based on the context. And ChatGPT is not always the best at refining its own prompts, but it's always worth doing it. So we're gonna do it. So I'm gonna open up a new chat window. We're gonna start with ChatGPT 4 and we're going to ask it to redo this prompt. Okay, so this is our initial refinement prompt, and we could refine this prompt, but it basically says, I'm gonna give you a prompt and you're going to make it better. So we're going to hop into a new chat window, and then we're going to go ahead and grab this prompt again and put it in here, and I'm enclosing it in quotes. Really, I think you can use any delimiting character to say, okay, this is the actual prompt. So we'll see how we do in 3.5 turbo and 4. This is 4 now. And first of all, we can see it's giving the same stuff, right? So it's decided to go line by line and include these numbers, which we absolutely don't need. It is important that chat does things sequentially, but as far as I know, adding numbers doesn't really do anything. And you really want the ChatGPT model to think sequentially and ask it to think step by step, not just to number your query and think that it's going to have the same result. So what we got back is basically the same prompt, a little bit more concise, but it's not what I want. So let's jump into 3.5. I love 3.5 because it's unlimited, and yeah, of course I pay the $20 a month, but they still don't give you unlimited GPT-4. So we'll see that in GPT-3, I'm sorry, 3.5, we have a similar situation. We got back basically the same answer. It's kind of concise, but I kind of feel like if we did a character count, 4 might be a little bit less, but it's about the same. And you know, the ultimate test of this would be to throw this in to a new chat context. Oops, that's the next one. So we're going to throw it into another 3.5 context and see if we get back like a similar or the same answers. So I'm actually getting back a very different answer. I don't know if that's just sort of the randomness. We can try to regenerate response. But I believe the first time that we did this, we got 5 answers back. So that's one metric that we said we were going to look at, is how many responses do we get back? But we'll notice that the length of these responses has went down. And something about this rewording did that. And that's why I've been so like, okay, yeah, you can use ChatGPT to improve the prompts, but is it really going to work? Maybe. What I want to do now is I want to actually improve this prompt again. So I'm going to copy this, and actually what it's going to do is it should remove the numbers when I do that, and I'm going to put it in and see if, honestly, I'm just going to remove this. We don't have time for that. So, okay, so now we have all of the prompt. We're going to ask ChatGPT to make it better. This is going to be the last chance that we give ChatGPT to make it better. Then we're going to go in and improve this prompt manually. And I apologize, this lesson is kind of dragging out more than I thought, but this is the good point. After this, we're going to actually manually do it. And that is the key value of this class, is to understand how to make it better, right? So you can ask ChatGPT to make it better, but it's not going to do the same as if you were to engineer it yourself. So I've taken this prompt. I quite dangerously didn't test this prompt, but I'm going to trust GPT-4 to do a decent idea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically ignore all of the context. And I would postulate that we don't even need that. We probably don't need that much information outside of it is a generative image library, right? So yeah, now that we got that out of the way, we want to be clear about what keywords that we're going to use. So all of this is context, and now we're getting to the actual prompt. So right here we have, your role is to craft detailed and imaginative descriptions. That's perfect, and that's why we're getting sort of a longer response, but we want to target a few keywords. And I'm not sure whether I should target these keywords in the sentence or to start a new sentence. We've updated this prompt just by adding to the very end. Some of the prompts should include information about the style of art or a specific artist, using the phrase "in the style of artist." So this is using one of the techniques when we talked about syntax. I'm basically telling it to use this literal phrase and then to replace that one word. And some photography prompts should include information about the camera settings used. So we found out that Midjourney does understand camera settings. That's something that ChatGPT did not know, but we added it in there and we'll see what happens. So let's try this in ChatGPT 3.5 as well as 4. Okay, so wow, this is really good, and this is exactly what I wanted. You can see that just by targeting these 3 keywords. Number 1, the style of art, the specific artists, and the camera used. I guess 4 keywords if you count the characters. We're getting a lot better responses. Now, as our GPT-3 loads, let's look at all of the results from GPT-4. We can see that we got back incredibly better prompts. And the metrics I'm using are, again, how many we got back, and we only got back 5. That's fine. That's actually something I meant to add to say, like, to give me 100 prompts. But we are getting longer prompts, and they are doing what we asked. But I noticed something. So we have this specific information about the camera, but this is not a camera scene. So this is part of the refinement. We're going to have to say only. So and only photography prompts should include information about the camera settings used. That might make every photography prompt do it, but it's probably going to solve that issue. I'm also going to add write 100 prompts that are over 200 characters. And what that should do is it should just try to give as many as we can, as many as it can output, and then we're going to hit continue to get the rest of the prompts. And looking a little bit deeper, we can see that these prompts are pretty good. So like in this one, for example, we have a floating island high in the sky, and it's telling exactly what it should be surrounded by. It's giving us the style, which is something I explicitly asked for in the style of Vincent van Gogh, and more information about how to create the image. So overall, I'm really happy with what this sort of change did. And now that we've made a few additional tweaks, let's see if we get back anything better. Meanwhile, let's look at ChatGPT 3.5, and we'll see that ChatGPT 3.5 did not understand the right prompts that are over 200 characters. This is a common limitation of the model. It doesn't understand things like length limits, but GPT-4 actually does a lot better job. Although, now that I've said that, I'm not convinced that these are over 200 characters. And maybe it's doing that because it's trying to fit in 100 prompts. So it's sort of limiting itself to try to give back more answers. So that's something that we again would have to test. Does it make sense to ask for more prompts, or is it just sort of a lofty idea? Overall, after all of these have loaded, I think that this change was bad. So something about this, and I believe it's the asking for 100, has made these shorter. Also, there's no photography prompts in here, which is sort of an issue. So I'm going to stop this generation, and I'm going to edit this and just remove this 100 prompts. And I really think that that is going to be what we need, although I've just reached my limit, so I'm going to have to wait a few minutes to get back that answer. Meanwhile, let's go to ChatGPT 3.5. We're seeing that we are getting a little bit of information about cameras. I saw something about a wide angle lens, and it is for a photograph. So, you know, the photograph here is also saying a high aperture. So while it isn't as specific as we were getting back from 3.5, it's still pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and edit this with, oops. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this prompt really quickly and see if we're getting back. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this prompt to be the exact same as the last one that didn't do quite as well in 3.4, and see if we have like a similar situation here. So we are getting shorter lengths. It's not following the 200 characters, which it wasn't doing before. But this is a little bit of a difference between ChatGPT 3 and 4, where GPT-4 modified the response greatly to sort of fit into the length limits, while ChatGPT 3 didn't have too much of a difference because it already was giving short responses, which is not what we want. And just to verify, continue does work to get out the rest of our 100 prompts. So all in all, we can see that by adding a few specifics to what we want to get back, we were able to greatly improve what sort of responses that we're getting back from ChatGPT 4. And just to take a look back, this is the original responses that we were getting. So the refined prompts were giving us a lot better answers. So the engineered prompt did get us back better answers. Now, while we're still waiting to be let back into GPT-4, let's jump over to the educational content creator. So this prompt is really simple, and it should be really easy for us to improve because we're not depending on keywords that the model doesn't understand. What we're trying to do is to develop a lesson plan. So everything that ChatGPT needs to do that is already within the model. And what we have to do is to better understand what keywords to use to communicate that we want a lesson plan, and also communicate exactly what type of lesson plan that we have. And I went ahead and threw this in both models of ChatGPT. So with this pretty simple prompt, which is a little bit of a one-shot prequel, and then I need help developing a lesson plan on renewable energy sources, we get back this information in this format of objective materials procedure. So all of this format information is the default that ChatGPT gives us, but we can certainly set that context to change what sort of responses we get back. And if we jump over to ChatGPT 4, we're going to see a little bit different response. So we're getting the objectives and materials first, but the lesson outline here, in my opinion, is a lot better because it's simply talking about topics and what to do, versus this is like, it's almost too specific. It's like saying, okay, here's the procedure. This is not something that I would walk up to the front of a classroom with. But this is very easy to write on a chalkboard, and it makes a lot more sense. To make this prompt better, we can be a little bit more explicit. So I'm actually going to borrow the part that I used to get a better ChatGPT 4 prompt, and I'm going to add it to the top here and go to a new window. So we sort of reset the context. That's why I like to open up a new window. And I'm going to add a line here so that we can figure out exactly what the keywords are and have ChatGPT redo the prompt all at once. I changed the prompt and I added this line that says you will first list the keywords that are relevant based on the prompt provided. So we're going to see how well that does. Like, these are just prompts coming from me, and then we'll modify based on what we get. So what I really want is I want ChatGPT to say, okay, here are the keywords that you can use, and here's how to make it better. So what we got is some keywords that are relevant to the prompt itself, but not to the type of prompt. So we need to be a little bit more clear up here that's what we want. So I just added a few words about the keywords that are relevant based on the subject or task. That may be better or worse. Again, I'm in 3.5 now because I got shut out. So we're getting almost the same keywords. It's not what we want. So we're still at the point where we're looking for keywords. And instead of trying to just modify this prompt a bunch of times to get it to do two different things, we're going to separate that out because, as I said before, ChatGPT has all the information that we need. So I just asked directly, so I just asked directly, what are the keywords that I can use? And these are a bunch of keywords, and some of them may be accurate, some of them may not be. But we can pretty much guess that learning objectives are something that we can explicitly set. Student engagement is something that we can ask for, like, I want to make this an engaging lesson. Now we know that. Assessment and evaluation, that's something that we can add as part of this prompt if we want that assessment and evaluation. And the same for the rest of these. And now I can actually send messages to ChatGPT 4. So we'll see what GPT 4 has to say about these keywords. In ChatGPT 4, we have gotten back exactly what we want. All of these are things that we can directly put into this prompt to improve it. So let's go back to the original prompt, and we're not even gonna ask ChatGPT to make it better for us. We're gonna do this all by hand and add in a few of these to make a better prompt. So I went ahead and modified this prompt. This time I only added one sentence. And this sentence is chock full of these keywords. Make it for lesson grade 12 on the relevant topic. The reason I did that is because we're actually adding these topics at the end. Another way I like to do it is to use the parameter syntax. So you could just do topic and leave that blank, and you could even have like a whole list of these at the bottom of the prompt. So once you put that original context stacking prompt at the top, you can just add the parameters at the bottom, and then it makes it sort of like a lot more reusable. And that's a lot more reusable, yeah, that's it. So for example, we could add these topics here. And we also ask for activities that involve the students working together, and we put in a duration of 2 hours as well as an assessment, which is a 5-question quiz. So we're going to jump into a new window. We'll try GPT-4 and see what we get back. Now we can start to compare what we're getting now versus what we were getting before. So we have our lesson plan, our duration, materials, and then here's the main part of it. And you can see that we have our group activity and our quiz in there. But let's just jump back and see the differences here. So you'll see that it's default in the model, right? This is very important to understand, like what is the default if you don't tell it anything else. So by default, it tells us the materials and the objectives. So if we actually wanted to stop that activity, we would have to specify for ChatGPT that we do not need the material. In the new version, we do have our group activity, our group presentation, as well as our quiz and our conclusion. The only thing that I could see to be improved is the format in which we get it back. I would like this in Markdown format, so I can just add please respond in Markdown format. And just by adding that Markdown format, you can see that it's actually formatting the text. So that's something that's very helpful. And you can combine that with putting everything in a code block to make it easier to copy and paste. All right, now that we are out of ChatGPT jail, I went ahead and removed the 100, like I want 100 to see if that was shortening the queries, and that certainly was. So it seems like asking for more takes precedence in the system over asking for length. So that's a piece of wisdom I was not expecting to impart, but I'm sure it will help you a lot. And after I did change it so that only photography prompts have this information, I don't see any prompts that violate that. So this is a photograph and it's giving us the information about the camera. In summary, we have taken 2 prompts. This was the original version of the first prompt. We have deconstructed it. We have asked ChatGPT for help, and then we went in manually to improve it, and we got huge benefits for this prompt as well as for the other prompt in terms of what we actually want. Here we want prompts that actually work with the Midjourney model, not just say they do. And in our other prompt, we want a more targeted lesson plan. We were able to accomplish this by asking ChatGPT to redo this prompt and then figuring out what are the keywords by doing a little bit of Googling about Midjourney and then adding them into the prompt. For this prompt, all that we needed to do was ask what the keywords were, which we got back from ChatGPT 4 very accurately, and then update the prompt in just one sentence to have more information about which one of those keywords we want to target. And finally, we added a sort of general context to the whole model saying that we wanted Markdown. And we got, at the end of the day, this beautiful lesson plan in our second prompt and these beautiful Midjourney prompts from our first prompt engineering. That's all for this video. In the next lesson, we're going to go through something that's actually easier, which is to write a prompt from scratch.